Welcome everyone. Okay, Parshat Vayeitzei in Netivot Shalom, the fifth Mamar, Kuf Tzadik Vav, which is page 196. In the fifth essay, he talks about the beginning of Parshat Vayeitzei, right after he has the dream about the Malachim, the angels going up and down the ladders, and he says, Yaakov, the Torah is telling us that Yaakov made a neder, a vow to Hashem. Okay? And the vow, after he woke up, he made a vow to Hashem stating, Im yihyeh Elokim imadiv ushamarani baderech hazeh asher anochi olech. If Hashem will be with me, and he will guard me on the way that I am going, v'nasan li lechem le'echol v'veged lobosh. And he'll give me bread to eat and clothing to wear. V'shavti v'shalom el beis avi, and I will return to my father's house in peace. V'haya Hashem li le'elokim, and Hashem will be for me as a God. And then it says the last pasuk before Sheni, v'ha'evan hazos asher samti matzeva, and Yaakov is continuing to speak, and he says, this stone that I put should be like a monument, Yeh Beis Elokim, will be a house of God. V'chol asher titein li, aser asrenu lach. Whatever you, Hashem, will give me, I will tithe. I will give a tenth to Hashem. Okay? Now, let's look, when it says in the pasuk, that if Hashem will be with me and he will guard me, it uses the word Elokim. Elokim is God, as Yud Kei Vav Kei, Hashem, is also God, but there's different attributes. Yud Kei Vav Kei is the attribute of kindness of God, and Elokim is the attribute of din, justice. So Yaakov Avinu is asking Hashem for a he's asking Hashem for a blessing and a promise to keep him. So therefore, why would he be using? He's asking for kindness. Why should he be using the attribute of judgment? It should be the opposite. Now that's question number one. On question number two is on the Ramban. The Ramban differs from Rashi. Rashi says that when Yaakov said, "V'haya Hashem li le'elokim," and Hashem will be for me as a God, that is referring to that his name, Hashem's name, should be on me forever, from beginning till end, meaning that there will be no psul, no invalid part of his children. Meaning, like Avram had Yishmael, and Yitzchak had Esav. So Yaakov said, I don't want to have any Yishmael or Esav. I want all my children to be true to God, and therefore the name of Hashem will be on me forever. That's what Rashi says. However, the Ramban disagrees. The Ramban says this was not a condition in the promise that Yaakov was making. This was part of the promise, meaning that it was part of the vow that Yaakov was making, because he said if he returns to his father's house, if Hashem grants him that he's going to return to his father's house, then he will serve a higher service to Hashem. So the second question is, what does that mean, a higher service? What is that referring to? Now, at the end, there's no argument. In the last promise, right before Sheni, it says that whatever Hashem gives me, I will give a a tenth to Hashem, right? Well, wait a minute. We know that our forefathers, Avraham Avinu, Yitzchak Avinu, and Yaakov Avinu, were all keeping the Torah completely. So, what novelty is Yaakov Avinu saying over here that he's going to give a tenth to Hashem? They all did. They kept the Torah. That's part of the Torah. And not only that, the Netivot Shalom is asking, why did he pick to say this only on his way to Lavan? Why didn't he say it beforehand or afterwards? Like he's about to leave Eretz Yisrael and go to Lavan. Why is he saying it now? And the last question, before we start with our answers, the last question is, there is one more question, but you'll see it's part of it. It's from the answer, from a quasi answer, and we're going to go ahead and have the last question. But the fourth question right now is, how is it that Yaakov is saying all these things when Hashem originally, right when he was sleeping, Hashem gave him all these promises? Let's look. What did Hashem say? Hashem was upon him, the Torah says, and he appears to him in the dream, and he says, Ani Hashem Elokei Abraham, I am Hashem, the God of your father Avram, and the God of your father Yitzchak, and the God of Yitzchak, and the land that you are you're lying on, that land, I will give it to you and your children. And your children will be as the dust of the earth, and they will be spread, Yama v'Kedem v'Tzafon v'Negba, to the west, to the east, to the north, and to the south, and all the families of the land, meaning everyone, all the nations, will be blessed in you and in your children. So, and then he says, I will be with you, and I will guard you with wherever you go, and I will return you to this land. And he says, Hashem even continues to say, because I won't leave you until I do whatever I have told you. So this is a very clear blessing from Hashem. Why is it that Yaakov has to go ahead and say, okay, now that I just woke up, I'm going to go ahead and make a deal with Hashem, and I'm going to say, I'm going to do this and this and this, and Hashem is going to do this, what he just promised me he's going to do. He didn't trust Hashem, what he just said. So therefore, that's another question. Now, the Medrash gives a little bit of a quasi answer, saying that promises for tzaddikim can't be in this world because, as the Talmud says, sin, even when a tzaddik does a sin, right? Because a tzaddik also sins, right? This could cause that the promise not be fulfilled. However, the last question is, after such a clear promise from Hashem, that like the way that Yaakov Avinu just received, there should be nothing to worry about. Why is it that Yaakov Avinu is concerned? So now we're going to start the answers. So Netivot Shalom explains that the promises that Hashem made to Yaakov Avinu, if we really are very careful, we see that all the promises that Hashem made, it says in Pasuk Yud Gimel, V'hine Hashem nitzav alav. It says the Yud Kei Vav Kei, the God with the attribute of kindness. And then it says Vayomar Ani Hashem, and Vayomar, and Hashem said, Ani Hashem, I am Yud Kei Vav Kei, meaning the God of the attribute of kindness again. And that is the promise that he's making in that name, right? So therefore, Yaakov is saying, wait a second, that's all fine and good, but what if I sin to the point that the attribute of justice will push away the attribute of kindness. And if that happens, that will nullify the promises that was made. And it's not God's fault, it's my fault. So therefore, I am requesting from God not to be with me only with the attribute of kindness, but also to be with me with the attribute of justice. That's exactly why he purposely used Elokim, because I already have the promise. I believe and I trust Hashem that he promised me that he's going to be with me with the attribute of kindness. However, the problem is that I want, just in case I sin, I want that same thing, because think about it. The Shalom doesn't say this, but I think it's very obvious that Yaakov had a big responsibility on his head. Yaakov Avinu knew that he was it. Like Avram had Yitzchak, but he also had Yishmael. Yitzchak had Yaakov, but he also had Esau. So he knew that everything's up to him now. Klal Yisrael and the future of Klal Yisrael was right here up to him. So therefore, Yaakov is not taking any chances. Even if he sins, he doesn't want to ruin it for his children and all his descendants, meaning us. So therefore, Yaakov Avinu was very careful to say that I want Hashem in my life, and all these promises that he promised me, I want them to be with the attribute of justice as well. So therefore, I have no worries. Now, the Netivot Shalom, in order to explain what does it mean when it says a higher service, because that's what the Ramban says, that there's supposed to be a certain, the words of the Ramban is, that when he returns to Eretz Yisrael, he will serve Hashem with a different type of service, a higher service, higher level. Okay, so the Netivot Shalom brings the Klei Yakar. The Klei Yakar says that Yaakov will serve Hashem with love as opposed to with fear. That's what it's referring to. So what this means is that, and he brings from a it says, V'haya Hashem li le'elokim, right? That what Yaakov Avinu is saying, that until there's two different types of working for Hashem, like serving Hashem. There's an Oved Elokim and an Oved Hashem. An Oved Elokim, a servant of Elokim, means that you're fearing God and you're serving Hashem out of fear. An Oved Hashem means you're serving Hashem out of love. Obviously, the serving Hashem out of love is a much greater service than the serving Hashem out of fear. So that's what it means when he says Hashem li le'elokim. That is talking about that he's saying that I'm going to serve Hashem out of love. Okay, and that's what Yaakov Avinu was banking on, because he said that the neder that he's making, the vow that he's making to God, is that he should be with me, and he should give me his love, even with the attribute of justice, because there's a concept, as we mentioned in the past, al kol pshoim techase ava, that on every type of negligence, love will cover it over. Love will cover it over. So therefore, sorry about that technical difficulty. But what that means is that even when we do negligence, if we serve Hashem from love, through love, and meaning that what's going to happen is that either one of two things. Either the fact that right after I was negligent and I did something wrong, I realized it and I start doing tshuva out of love. Or another option would be is that Hashem's love for us is so great that He knows we didn't do it on purpose, and therefore He's going to go ahead and with His love for us, He's going to, make it as if it didn't happen. Okay, that's the concept of al kol pshoim techasa ava. That on all types of negligence, love covers it over. But really, it's referring to the fact that we're doing teshuvah out of love. That's the real thing. Okay, because pesha really means he did on purpose. Anyway, so let's continue. We still have to answer a few other things, right? It says that the Netivot Shalom says, according to the explanation of the Ramban, that the part of Vayah Hashem li le'elokim is really part of the actual vow that Hashem will be for me as a God, as opposed to Rashi, which it's part of the condition of the vow. So being the fact that the Ramban says that it's part of the vow itself, it's written with a vav achibor, with the vav, which means and, that connects the two, meaning that it says in that pasuk, "V'shavti v'shalom el beis avi," I will return to my father's house, right, in peace. Vayeh Hashem li le'elokim, and Hashem will be for me as a God, right? So it sounds like it's really one thing, which is more like Rashi says that the beginning part is the condition, and the end part is also the condition. Now everybody agrees that the beginning part of going back to his father's house is definitely a condition, not part of the neder, not part of the vow itself. But the Ramban says that it's part of the vow. So therefore, in order to explain this, the Netivot Shalom says there's two ways of serving Hashem. Im kivanim, im ka'avadim, as we say in the tefillos of Rosh Hashanah and Kippur. If we are going to be like sons, or if we're going to be like servants, right? If we're like sons, we're going to serve Hashem like a son does, out of love. But if we're serving Hashem as a servant, we're going to serve Hashem out of fear. And as long as I don't get hit and beaten, what do I care? I got the food that I need. I got the little cot on the floor. That's all I need. That's a servant's mentality. Now, the fact is that living in Eretz Yisrael, as thank God we do, like about half of the Jewish population now, I believe, is in Eretz Yisrael. And hopefully the other half will come very soon. Like tomorrow would be good. And it says that the main part of the service of, the serving God when you're living in Eretz Yisrael is with the midah of love. It's considered that when a Jew lives in the Holy Land, he's serving Hashem out of love. When a Jew lives in Chutz La'aretz, outside of Eretz Yisrael, in the diaspora, then it's serving Hashem out of fear. So now we understand, according to this, beautifully the words of Yaakov. Because when Yaakov says, "V'shavti v'shalom el beis avi," that I will return to my father's house in peace, that means, where is his father's house? His father's house was always in Israel. His father's house was never outside of Israel, because out of all three of our forefathers, only one of them never left. Yitzchak never left Eretz Yisrael. He was not allowed to leave. He was considered a holy carbon his whole life since the Akedah. So therefore, now we understand when it says, I will return to my father's house, meaning Eretz Yisrael, after going to Lavan. V'haya Hashem li le'elokim, and Hashem will be for me for a God, for a God, meaning that I will start serving Hashem with the attribute of love. And this is that what the words of the Rambam is. Let's go through the words of the Ramban. The Ramban says, Im ashuv el beis avi, evod Hashem hamyuchad be'eretz hanevcheret. That if I go ahead and return to my father's house, I will serve Hashem, the unique God, our unique God, in the special chosen land. Meaning that Eretz Yisrael is chosen to be God's land, and therefore we serve Hashem in the higher form of love. And it actually, towards the end of the words of the Ramban, he says over there, there's a sod, like a secret, that as the Chazal say, Kol adar b'chutz la'aretz dome kamisha ein lo Eloha, right? That whoever lives in the diaspora is as if he doesn't have a God. Okay? So, another reason of the many reasons to come live in the Holy Land. So therefore, Yaakov's midah was a mixture, as we know, it was glory, right? Avram Avinu's attribute was the attribute of kindness. Yitzchak was the attribute of gevura, right? Their main attribute. We're talking about the main attribute. Yaakov was a happy medium between the two, okay? And it was called Tiferet, which is glory. So that means he had the right amount of kindness and the right amount of judgment. I mean, he gleaned that from his father and his grandfather. So therefore, he knew from between both of them, the main part of the work and outside of Eretz Yisrael is to serve Hashem with the attribute of fear. And when he went back to Eretz Yisrael, he had to serve Hashem with the attribute of love. So now we can understand what the last I think it's the last question, where it said, how is it, what's so, it wasn't the last question, but we're not doing it exactly in order. So the question was, how is it that this is like a novelty that Yaakov is doing when he says that I will give 10th to Hashem? Like, all that's part of the Torah, and his father, his grandfather, and he was already not a youngster anymore, and he's always been keeping Hashem's laws all his life. Why is this a novelty by saying that I will give 10th to Hashem? So he says, the Netivot Shalom explains that this doesn't mean money or resources that he gains from profit or anything like that. It's talking about anything that Hashem gives me, any type of benefit, all the different types of things that I have, I will give 1/10 to Hashem. So that's very different. That when I have, my field gleans, 500 bushels, so that I have to give 50 bushels to God, right? I make a certain amount of money. Whatever it is, my orchard goes and pulls in whatever amount, then I have to give 1/10 to Hashem. But what he's saying is a higher level, totally a higher level. He's saying that every single thing that he gets, he has to give to Hashem 1/10. So let's look in the Medrash. The Medrash in Bereshis Rabbah says that they asked Rabbi Meir, they said, Yaakov Avinu was a ish amiti. He was the man of truth, right? Because it says, Titein emes liYaakov, giving emes, which is truth, is given to Yaakov. So he says, V'chol asher titein li aser esrenu lach. He said in this week's Parshat, the pasuk that we're talking about, whatever you give me, I will give to 1/10. But he had 12 children, and he gave Levi from the 10th. But Levi is not a 10th because he didn't have 10 children. He had 12. He has to give more. He can't just give Levi. Levi is not enough. And what they answered him, right? Instead of, it seems that they made the question even greater. Because they answered him, they said to Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Meir said back to them, did he have only 12 children? He had 14, right? Because he said about Yosef's children, Ephraim, Menashe, Reuben, and Shimon. That Ephraim and Menashe, the first two children of Yosef, will be to be like Reuben and Shimon. So therefore, he didn't have 12 children; he had 14. So therefore, he's actually. It seems like Rabbi Meir is actually strengthening the question and not answering it, right? But what he means is that he had 4 different wives. From all these children, there was 4 different wives. That means each and every one of those 4 wives had a firstborn son. Okay? Each firstborn son is exempt from that tithing. He's not obligated to give a tenth from the firstborn sons. And therefore, what's left from 14, if you take the 4 Bechorim of each of the wives, then you only have 10. And therefore, he gave Levi, which is the 10th. So that answers the question. So what that means is we see that when Yaakov says, I will give a tenth, right? He wasn't just being Mekayim. He wasn't just fulfilling the mitzvah of giving a tenth. He was fulfilling the mitzvah in a very, very amazing way, not only with his money and with any profits and gains, he was fulfilling with his children too. Okay? Every single thing he was fulfilling, whatever, it was a much higher level of service to Hashem. And that's what Yaakov Avinu meant when he said, Vaya Hashem li le'elokim, that he would go ahead and give, not because, listen, the Torah says I have to do something, I'm scared, I don't want to get any punishment, I don't want Hashem to take away something that I'm enjoying, so therefore I'm going to do exactly what the Torah says. No, he was doing it out of love, I want to do more. Okay? And that's what Yaakov did. So, he goes on and he says that the Priya Ar, it says in Parshat Ba'aloscha. In Ba'aloscha, it says that Kol hanoah gashmi she'adam neheh harei zeh nirgan mafrid v'aluf. That every physical benefit that a person benefits from, there's a negativity within it. That what is happening? I am enjoying this chocolate cake, then I am making a division between me and God. Now that's a very, very strong thing to say. How do we live as Jews like that? Well, because what it's saying is that if I go ahead and have that chocolate cake without making a bracha, then it's like I am stealing from God. So therefore, when I go ahead and make a bracha, I am actually filling that void. Let's take, for instance, an apple tree. So if I pick off a ripe apple from an apple tree, so I am creating a void, right? However, if I go ahead and make a bracha, I am filling that void up because I am making it even better than it was before. Before it was a perfect world that Hashem made with an apple. But now it's a perfect world with a bracha, so it's even better than before. The blessing makes it's filled in with spirituality, which is actually uplifting the mundane. So therefore, when it says that a person who enjoys something is actually making a division between him and God, so therefore, if he, instead of doing this, he goes and he says, I am partnership with Hashem, I love Hashem, and I have such a special relationship with Hashem, then therefore, I am making a partnership with him, and there's no way I'm doing anything without including Hashem in it. And therefore, that division is not there. There's no negativity when I have Hashem in my life constantly. And we see that from, the fact that Hashem gives us the opportunity. Like even when we tie our shoes, we have a way to tie our shoes to be able to. It shows that Hashem wants to be in every part of our lives. So this was, now one more question that we have, I believe. I think we answered everything else. But one more question is, why is it that Yaakov Avinu is saying this only right before going to Lavan's house, right? Why not say this before or after? Why right before he's leaving Eretz Yisrael? And the Netivot Shalom brings down a medrash that says, Vayifka, because it says in this week's Parshat, Vayifka b'makom, like he came into the place, right? Vayifka b'makom, he came into the place. The Torah is the Rashi's Pirush is that it means that he met with Hashem. He met in the place, meaning that he actually established the third tefillah, or actually the first tefillah of the day, because Avram Avinu established Shachris, morning prayer. Yitzchak established Mincha, the afternoon prayer, and Yaakov Avinu established the evening prayer, which is really the first prayer because Jewish days start from the night before. So Vayifka b'makom, the Medrash says that what this means is that there was a wall that in front of him when he was about to go out of Eretz Yisrael. Until then he was in he was in Yitzchak's house, and he was in the yeshiva of Shem Ve'ever, right? And he had no connection whatsoever with this world. Not at all. He was learning Torah the whole time, right? And now he is going to leave this world that he was involved with, the spiritual world, and he's going to go ahead and marry a woman and to have children and obviously to make a livelihood. So, and where is it going to be? Not just any place, but in the epitome of impurity. So therefore the whole world wanted to stop him, because how could he go ahead and go into this non-spiritual world? So therefore he is saying, that's why Hashem said to him, I will be with you and I will watch you, I will guard you. I know you don't want to go to leave Eretz Yisrael, but I will guard you. And therefore the neder that Yaakov Avinu is making was like a preparation for him. It was a preparation of now he has to prepare himself to go out of the diaspora, out of Eretz Yisrael and into the diaspora. Well, not into any diaspora, but in the most impure part of it, in Lavan's house. So therefore, that this was the way that Yaakov Avinu decided that the best way for him to enter this materialistic and physical and lustful world. He's going to still go ahead and take the Gashmius, take that physicality and make into it and uplift it to make it spiritual. So therefore, just like he saw in the dream that he just had the night before of the Malachim going up and down the ladder, what does it say about the ladder? The ladder is standing tight in the ground, but the top of the ladder, the bottom of the ladder, right? But the top of the ladder is all the way up in the Shemayim, in the heavens. So therefore, if he goes ahead and he brings Hashem in his life, and in such a way that he is, connecting with Hashem, then his head will be in the heavens, meaning like the Malachim going up and down, the Malachim who are spiritual, they were able to go up and down the ladder. So too, Hashem, Yaakov Avinu is asking Hashem, making this neder, that he should be able to be in this world of physicality and materialistic world, to be able to strive in it in spirituality, even in this epitome of impurity. So we should be zocheh b'ezrat Hashem to also be able to bring ourselves the ability to have a spiritual life even in this mundane world. May we all be zocheh.